We are live. Welcome to Coffee and Conversations. I am your host, Eva Medilek, and my guest today is Monte Cox, a dear friend of mine. Now, Monte is a transformational speaker and performance coach, obsessed with helping you get past fear so you can create peace, power, and possibility in your life. Monte combines spiritual masters, mentorship, business coaching, accountability, cheerleading, whoop, whoop, and honesty to create the space for transformation through transmutation. I will hold your hand while you walk through the fire. So, welcome, Monte. I'm going to take my glasses off so that I don't look too creepy with the lights coming in. But
You look gorgeous. Thank you.
but I really want to thank you for coming on because I know you and I are in a few communities together, and I know that you have started a book club. And tell us a little bit about what that book club is, what the inspiration was for it, and the book I think you guys just completed.
Yes. Well, I started the book club right after George Floyd's murder. It's oh, there we go. Me and White Supremacy by
Mhm.
I'm not sure how to say her last. It's Layla Saad. It's Saad. I'm not exactly sure.
Or Said or something, Sayad or something like
Sayad, yeah. So we finished. So it was right after George Floyd's murder, and when the Black Lives Movement really took off like everywhere, and being in a few different communities, I've really been studying social justice for about 4 years, and realizing how much people did not know, like
that.
and I had never taken a stand for social justice because the same thing that I read about in the books, like I don't know enough, like I'm going to get it wrong, that like all of those things, because I'm no expert, but in that time period, in a lot of the different groups I was in, I realized actually I know quite a bit. And so I realized I can take a stand, and I get to take a stand. So I did a Facebook post talking about, because people didn't understand what white fragility was.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, well, it was the video was about Black Lives Matter, not all lives matter,
Mhm.
because that's where the right fragility comes in. It's like, but all lives matter, and it's like that's not what we're talking about, and here's why. And I understand the all lives matter, and all of the reactions and everything. So I think it's a lot easier sometimes, especially at a time like that when Black people, African Americans, people of color were really, really hurting. I mean, just like enough of this already, right? And so it's very difficult. It can be very difficult to express yourself at a time like that. And so there's a lot of anger coming up, obviously. And then with white fragility, any kind of talk about race, because we don't have to talk about race as white people, can be very affronting. And so I think it can come easier, like the start of the conversation from another white person to a white person, to understand some of the basics. So I did a post about it, and it got shared a bunch of times, and I got a bunch of views, and I just said, I'm starting a book club next week. And I picked this book because I had heard about it. And yeah, we started reading it, and yesterday was meant to be the finale. I had to cancel I had a little bit of something going on. So
Mhm.
we're gonna finish it, but we finished the book.
Mhm. So, what do you find is being unearthed when you delve deeper into the education and knowledge around white supremacy, white superiority, white fragility in the white community that you are supporting? Holding their hand while they're walking through this fire of talking about racism and anti-racism. I'm curious to hear from your standpoint because I know what is coming up for me and what I'm finding, but I want to hear from you. What type of triumphs and challenges are you experiencing?
Yeah, well, it's really great. I mean, some of the people that have come into the group, had some understanding and some education. Some people had absolutely none. And, it's really, for me, it's very cool. Like the people that have come are obviously people that want to know better and to do better. And, so it's a different kind of microcosm
Mhm.
from like maybe the larger community in America. But the people are very like it's very hurting. It hurts a lot when you realize what, like people, like, I mean, I've had, black friends, people of color, my whole life friends, until I understood what, I didn't even know what white privilege was, because I'd heard about it. And to me, the way I value the world, it's very much based upon, it was raised in America, capitalism. So money, beauty, wealth, that sort of thing. So when I heard white privilege years ago, I just ignored it because that didn't mean me, because I was middle class. I didn't feel like I had the start I wanted. Like, that was privilege to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like kind of a redoing. It's like, well, yes, that can be the thing, but also just having white skin, the things that I don't have to go through. So when I really realized about it and started delving into it, I started asking my friends that I've been friends with since I'm like, kid. And, oh yeah, well, this always happens, or this happens, and this happens. And nobody ever told me about it. So like, I literally was a fish inside of a fishbowl. And so when you find that out, like, and how people that you love, like the microaggressions, I mean, like macroaggressions, like the horrible things that we see, it's very like, with a person with a heart, it's like, no, no, this is not good, because racism to me, like, I think it was Robin DiAngelo that and I was watching one of her talks, when it's like racism after the Civil War is, so I'm just paraphrasing, it's a person who doesn't like it, like just decidedly doesn't like people of other races and is mean, or something along those lines.
More like prejudice, discrimination that is outwardly obvious, and
yes,
they don't hide it. It's subtle, internal. You don't even know that you're a racist.
Yeah,
it's being unearthed now. And what I'm finding, to get a little bit back on track about wanting to see if you're finding it too, is, the Black community is experiencing a lot of grief, a lot of trauma, a lot of pain and hurt and anger that's generational, that's coming up. It's like so deep, and we just feel it coming up. What I'm noticing on the white side of things is that they're feeling something too, and it's around guilt, shame, and also the fear of losing authority in a way that is coming up as guilt and shame. There's the embarrassment of it, there's the shame and guilt, and that's generational too, and ancestral from years ago. I believe that's coming up. I mean, I'm not a psychologist or a therapist by any stretch of the imagination, but everybody is processing all of these emotions, and how it is presented and manifest is different per individual. And so my experience of the white community is a lot of individualization. That's not me. I don't feel that way. I'm not a racist. And it gets defensive because of the friends and family that they've had in their lives. And so that can't be talking about me. And when you dig down and into these books and education, you find out that, oh, I have benefited from systemic racism, and these are the areas it's showing up in my life. So what are you finding?
Well, I want to talk about two things there, because there's one thing, like definitely the guilt. Like last night, I was in a really deep, I'm coaching a leadership program, and there's a white man who's very wealthy, done very well in his life, and he is he's taken this on hardcore. He's starting like new leadership movements. Like, I mean, he's got a lot of power, and it's beautiful to watch. He's like, I'm ready to burn this whole system down. Like, I mean, he's going for it. And lately he's been very depressed, he just feels overwhelmed by it. Like, he feels guilty for not knowing. He feels guilty. He realizes, like, in the moment, I actually don't have any Black friends. Like, he hadn't even clued in on that or what it meant or anything. And so really having a lot of that, because this is all new to him. Like, I'm 4 years in. And so one thing, I talked to Janine, who you had on your master class about a month ago. Right. Staples and we're friends. And so we were just connecting yesterday, and we were talking about that, and just how you get to, she's like, you get to process the feelings that come up, and then it's time to, we don't have to stay there. And so yesterday I was very much encouraging him, you're having a grieving, you're learning new things about yourself. And I invite you to have it, but you don't have to stay there. There can be a feeling of like, I need to feel this because it's so unfair, but that's not really going to help. Like, because we can do a lot to move the movement forward. So can I, like on July 1st, I woke up and I'm like, okay, I'm done feeling like a butthead. I am going, then I changed it. I did a video about diamond thoughts, and because when I rise up here, now I can do something. Before I'm like on the couch feeling a little defeated. So that's part of it, definitely feeling the feelings and like facing yourself and what's going on. And, yes, but that's something. There's something like when I'm reading like Me and White Supremacy yesterday, I was talking about it with Janine because I find her a little bit, I don't like this book. And it's not because it was hard for me. I think that she's, I was talking about it with Janine and she's heard similar, like it's slightly problematic in that she's really much talking from her lens. And what she's doing is she's telling me how I feel, no matter what I think I feel, or and it's very it's not even affronting. I just find it offensive in that as a white man, I'm not going to come and tell you, Eva, anything about how you can feel, how you should feel, who you are, any of that. And I find this book very much telling me who I am, who I should be, how I feel, that I've got some unconscious bias against Black people, which my personal, and that may be true for a lot of people, but it is not my personal experience throughout my life. Because when I was a little kid, I knew about the ozone. You know what I mean? Like I'm smart. I was paying attention to what's going on in science. I was looking forward. I wanted to have a kid with a Black woman when I wanted a child, because I did not want a white baby, because I didn't know about racism. I always saw it as Black skin is better. It's just smart. That was, and, you know what I mean?
All the children, I remember, it's funny because when I grew up, it was in the 60s and we were colored back then. And I remember, but we had a black and white TV. And I remember my mom and dad, we were watching the Jackie Gleason show and what are they? The June Taylor dancers. You're probably too young to know about this, but anybody in my age group would. And they would be looking for colored girls. And I remember being a child, like this in front of the TV, like, I wonder what color they are.
Yes.
Yeah, like what color could they be? Are they purple? Like we had a black and white TV, so everybody kind of looked the same, and they were going by their legs looking for the darker skin. And it's just those memories. But back to your book, just give me some examples of some things in the book, that triggered you or you didn't like or you didn't agree with, and B, that may have been a big aha for you in your life.
Well, the thing that triggered me was really, I was reading it a couple nights ago, is you with your unconscious, it's something around the lines of, I think I actually highlighted it, something around the lines of, let's see if we can got this right here. Set values. Something about your unconscious, sorry, that's my neighbor. Your unconscious, it's telling me that I unconsciously think that Black people are inferior, which my experience is not that, because I'll just go ahead and tell you what my biases have been throughout life: beauty, money, power. That's what I judge, and socioeconomic. So anybody that's gorgeous, and I can tell is I'm into fashion, who's wearing beautiful clothes, I'm not, I see that as valuable. I always have. That's where my biases have been. That's always been my goals. That's always been my aspirations. And so I see an Indian woman, gorgeous, beautiful, beautifully dressed up. Wow, she's got it. I see.
I want to speak into that, if I may. And, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you know what?
Okay.
I actually agree with her on the unconscious bias, and I'll tell you why. If you actually grow up in this country, you are, as a Black person, you are made to feel that white is the standard, is the norm, and everything is measured on that. And we tend to think of ourselves. Now, hear me when I say this. as less than, as needing to be better, to do better so that we can have better and be successful in a white patriarchal world. We have our own unconscious biases about ourselves. And I don't think there's, with the heart I have, when you individualize it, like, yes, your bias may be way deep that you don't even see that you have it. But there was that video that I posted about systemic racism with the Black children that were like 4 or 5 or 6 years old. And they put a white doll and a black doll in front of them, and they asked them certain questions about it. That's the systemic unconscious bias that we grow up with in this country. Now, whether we practice it is one thing, but I have to really say it's there on all sides, because I have always, and I'm going to just say it, as beautiful as I am, as powerful as I am, as successful as I am, I've always felt less than, because the standard that I had to reach was always a white standard. Mm-hmm. Always, always, always. And not that I was, yes, I do have unconscious prejudices about certain neighborhoods or certain ways certain people look. And yes, I am judgy AF if your shoes are not on point. Mm-hmm. And so I get that. So I see where she's coming from that, and knowing people's hearts and people's intentions, I can see how that can be triggering too. But not me. That's not how I am. So that's where I'm going to lovingly say I have a different view. I haven't read the book yet, so I'll get to read that and see, the lens that she's viewing that through. But it can hit hard when you've lived your life with a different intention.
Yeah, and I get it, and I understand that, because I understand when you're growing up brown or Black in this country, or it's changing in media now, but it's not even to where it gets to be. But I think when I was a little kid, I don't even know if there was Black dolls. I mean, there wasn't. You certainly weren't watching a lot of television shows. There was a couple of television shows with some Black people in it. I know that there weren't models. I know that there weren't a lot of role models. And I can understand the effect that has on the Black community when you're not seeing yourself that's there. And I get that. And I'm open to it. And, and I'm not saying that it's maybe somewhere inside, but I can't literally, I'm doing the work. I can't find it for myself personally. Mm-hmm. And I would never tell her, well, this is my view and this is how I see the world. And so this is how you are. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's a broad stroke. And I'm open.
Is she credentialed at all?
Pardon?
Is she credentialed that she does studies?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really remember what her credentials are. She's a writer, speaker, podcast host, topics of race, identity, leadership, personal transformation. And also her lens is a little bit different, as well, because she grew up in the UK and then moved to Qatar when she was.
So she didn't grow up in the United States.
Yeah, so she's not from the United States, but I mean, I know that there's problems of racism all over the world.
Oh yeah, so. Absolutely. So what was something in her book that struck you as wow, I get to look at that in my life?
I don't know if there was anything that was really like that. It was, for me, there's a lot of the white apathy was a really great thing to learn about, because I'm aware of what it was, but now I can define it, when you actually know.
Define it for us. What is it?
Well, white apathy essentially, as I understand it, I paraphrase, but it's like understanding that there is a problem and then choosing not to do anything about it,
Got it.
Not standing up. If I'm in a situation where somebody there's a white leader and they say something a little bit racist, but it's maybe it's a tiny microaggression and I just let it go, because I don't have to do anything, and, so it's things like that. So that was a really great way to explain. I liked a lot of the definitions that I got in here so that I could. And I learned a lot. There's a lot of different concepts that that I want to know about. And yeah, so I think that was actually the thing that stood out the most,
And there's apathy on both sides. And I have to, just sharing my experience personally, because that's the lens I see out of, is, there have been microaggressions that I haven't mentioned to protect white fragility. And,
Mm-hmm.
as you know, my husband is not Black, and I have, seen microaggressions not only in our own relationship, but in, his family is from Europe, in Europe. And it's just like, there's so much energy and effort that would go into explaining it. I find myself letting it go. Or when I'm in communities that are that have very little people of color in it, and you see things that are, they're not overt, but they're subtle. The energy and effort that goes into explaining it, you just tend to let it go because it just takes so much out of you. And I think now we're at a point where that's not okay anymore. It's kind of, if you see something, say something, and learning how to point these things out without, because there's always that fear, like, oh, they're going to think I'm like the race police now. Oh my God, I can't say anything. Or this used to be okay. Like, there's so much underneath that. But I think we have an opportunity that if we see something in someone, to take them aside privately, even,
Yes.
and just share, and ask if they're open to feedback on what something you've seen them do or heard them say, and if it was okay, and to really have those, what I call these intimate race conversations, and to keep it intimate. I think calling people out right now in public, we're not able to handle that. It's still too raw. There's still a lot of defense going to come up, and the shame and the guilt is not going to move people forward and continuing, and it's going to make them feel like giving up. And that's just my perspective. There may be time and place for a public call out, but I think when we get intimate and really connect with people around, did you realize what you said? And the effect that could have, and what that means, and what that means in the Black community or in general. It's an opportunity to have these intimate conversations. So any final words, young man?
Yeah, let's see. Let the final words. Yeah, one thing that I think that we get to do is also I have, me, I've got a problem with authority. I don't like rules. I don't like being told what to do. And so when you may have noticed about me. So, and that's why I have a little bit of problem with this particular book and with some of the ways that things are presented, because it's like, come to me like it's white supremacy. I didn't create it, and I want to help dismantle it any way that I can. I want to take full responsibility. So there's something going on in the book about, like, it's just like, there's so many ways you could do things wrong. And then it's basically like, it's just like, it's almost damned if you do, damned if you don't. And you need to act this way if you're going to help us, and it's like, wait, that's making us farther apart, because I could very easily slip into my white privilege. I can pass as straight. I can, when I need to, I do, what I mean? So I could just be there. A lot of people could just be there if they wanted to. And so for me, the experience of it almost feels a little bit warish, sometimes. And it's my personal opinion. Nothing gets done there. Like, for me, like the anti-racist movement, I am 100% in alignment with all that it means, but I do not say I am an anti-racist, because my spiritual beliefs believe that anything I am anti grows stronger. Like, I've, seen it in a presidential.
That grows.
Yeah, it's not like I'm a racism dismantler, but I don't need to argue about it when, like, if Black people feel, like it is the anti-racist movement, so be it. I am here with you, so it's just, but there's just like semantics. There's ways of approaching things that I think.
How are you bringing this into your life personally? Like, what action steps, other than, the book club, which I think is great to really get the conversation going, because I'm sure for some people they can get some ahas about how this is showing up in their lives and where they can start to transform those beliefs, patterns, and behaviors. But any change in your personal life or business life that has been significant for you, or taking it step?
Yeah, right now, well, what I've been learning, is, okay, so Janine Staples is one of my very good friends. And so I always go, and she teaches this. And so I always go to her, and she really talks about doing the emotional justice work first. So right now I'm working on the emotional justice, and And I'm also looking at how do I fit this into my business and my conversation, because my conversation really, like, I believe everybody is believing a lie. Like racism is it's a straight effing lie. You know what I mean? There are no races. You know, we're a human race. And so, you know, it was a control system that was put into place a long time ago. And and it's all made up, so it comes down to freedom. Like there's freedoms that we don't have because we're believing a story. Like personally, like I have my own, even though I have white privilege, I have my own cages that I've lived in, that I put on within myself that have come from things I've seen in society. And then, like everybody has those. And then racism puts another cage on top of you outside of yourself. So my work is all about creating freedom for people. Like I want everybody to feel free and delicious, pursue what they want to do. So it's been a process of looking at how do I work this into, like, I want this to be part of my teaching, like, okay, let's work on ourselves and our personal freedom. And then let's look outside. How do we help other people gain freedom? And I'm not sure what all of the steps are yet. And so I'm open. Like I want to be like, I do want to go to the Black Lives Matter movement meeting. And it's like, you guys tell me how can I help? But what do you want me to do? But what is the best step that I can take to assist? So,
So we're all in discovery phase. And here's the thing, we get to really, take imperfect action.
Mm-hmm.
Better than no action, but also to give ourselves space and grace to grow into this. It really is, we're in our infancy, especially white people, with just really being made aware of how deep this goes. And so, in my coaching, I really help people, number one, be in the discovery themselves, before they can go out and tell people what you should think, how you should do it, and this is this and this is that. It's like that emotional awakening and awareness, and learn how to have these conversations, because every conversation you'll learn something. It may not, you may not like what you're learning. There may be some surprises, but be open to the learning without the reaction or the response, and just really, like my daughter always said, just have a think on it. Really take time, have a think on it, process your emotions around it, and really look at it before, getting that reactive response to it is really the first step. And, if it's true, okay, let's move on. What's next? If it's not true about you, let it go. But I invite you to, pardon me, and everyone, to just look at it before you dismiss it. Can it be true?
Mm-hmm.
Is there something in me somewhere that feels that way? And it doesn't make you a bad person. It does not make you a bad person. We know you have a good heart and good intentions. It's just the reality of the system that we grew up in. And the system is not broken. It was designed this way. So
it's working perfectly.
Break it and rebuild it, just like in relationships. So love you, darling. I know you have to run. Thank you for being able to join me this morning. I was really looking forward to this.
Me too.
And, if I can support you in any way, like you've supported me so many times, I appreciate you. Bye.
I appreciate you too. Bye, everybody.